Okay, this is the voltage reading on the multimeter for the zinc sulfate and copper 2 sulfate solution. Take note of how everything's connected. Up next is the setup for lead 2 sulfate with copper 2 sulfate, and this is 0.510 volts. Next is the setup between zinc sulfate and lead 2 sulfate. The black represents the anode and the red is the cathode. Okay, this is my copper sulfate solution, and I'm going to put in the piece of zinc metal, and then we're going to observe its effects over the next few minutes. So notice the change in color at the bottom. I'm going to lift it up and just show you what's happening. So I'm going to leave it in here for a couple more minutes and then we'll come back to see the results when it's finished. So this is what our zinc strip looks like in the copper 2 sulfate solution after about 5 minutes. And it's kind of also grainy in the beaker. You can see at the very bottom there's small dark particulate matter. So go ahead and make your observations on data sheet number 2. Okay, here we have our lead 2 sulfate solution, and I'm going to place inside of it a zinc strip. And we're also going to observe the effects over the next few minutes. I'm going to lift the strip up just so you can get a close-up of what's happening so far. And then we're going to put it back in for a couple minutes and we'll come back and see the results. All right, this is the zinc strip in the lead 2 sulfate solution after about 5 minutes. Let's see what it looks like. And it's not just your imagination, it does look like glitter. And I'll turn it to the side so you can see the difference in the thickness of the metal. And let's look at the solution. Still rather clear, but some dark particulate matter floating around. All right, make your observations on data sheet number 2. This is our copper 2 sulfate solution that we are going to place a piece of lead metal inside. So here's my lead. And we are going to do the same thing, observe the effects over the next 5 minutes. I'll stop the video here and then we'll see the effects over the next few minutes when we come back. All right, and here is the result. You can tell there's some discoloration. And you should also be able to kind of see that the strip is actually thinner. It looks a little bit thinner at the bottom. So go ahead and make your observations there as to the color and how it changed, and then stay tuned for some time-lapse videos. All right, our first time lapse is copper sulfate with a piece of lead metal. You want to take note of what's happening to the metal in particular. And I'll slow it down at the very end so you can have a little better look. And up next is a lead 2 sulfate solution with a piece of zinc metal inside. And last but not least is a piece of zinc metal with inside a copper 2 sulfate solution. And I'll slow down at the end and you are done.